I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm strong to the finish, 'cause I eats my spinach. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. Well, blow me down.
Guess who just turned public domain? That's right, baby. We all own Popeye now and can do whatever we want with him. Look here! I drew him in a funny hat and nobody can stop me. I do what I want. I think I'll name him Hat Eye, an imperfect clone from another dimension of Popeye. This is not my original character, so do not copy. Right now you're asking yourself, what does Popeye being public domain really mean though? It means Popeye's as old as me, old Ashley. Hi everybody, welcome back to Pilots, where we delve into the past of things and learn what stuff helped and influenced said things. I guess there's no point beating around the boat, huh? Because he's a sailor? Get it? Anyways, let's delve into Popeye the Sailor Man. Elzie Crisler Segar, born December 8th, 1894, was an American cartoonist. While he himself was not a household name, I think most people know his greatest creation, olive oil, as well as his second best perhaps, Popeye. He is what you would call a cartoonist, inspiring a whole generation of funny picture artists after him, including Peanuts creator Charles M. Schulz, who said of Segar's work, "I think Popeye was a perfect comic strip, consistent in drawing and humor." Well, top fucking praise right there from a real cartoon titan. Even Willie Eisner, creator of The Spirit, was a fan.
And he was also an influence on Will Eisner, who did The Spirit, with whom I worked. So Eisner and I would talk about Segar, and I would see Segar's influence on Eisner, and I would be influenced by Eisner.
There were others who took influence from his work, such as Jerry Segal and Joe Shuster, the Superman guys, but also people like Booty Rogers, Robert Crumb, and even Carl Barks, who you would know from the Uncle Scrooge comics. Just like all of those good lads were influenced by him, Segar himself had his own influences, but we will get to them in time. But right now, let's start from the very beginning. Born and raised in Illinois, Segar's earliest work experience included assisting his father in house painting and paper hanging. Just like me, actually. Me and the greats, we always have a lot in common, except success. Ah. Segar was also musically gifted and provided musical accompaniment to films and vaudeville acts in his local theatre, and was eventually given the job of film projectionist. He decided at 18 to become a cartoonist, and after some rejections he signed up for a correspondence course in cartooning. This, I guess, is the closest thing to an online course at the time, with Segar mailing his assignments to be reviewed by his teacher, who would mail back. Unlike today's youths, he took it very seriously and would burn the midnight oil well into the night, and this is the turn of the 20th century. That oil ain't cheap. Segar also immersed himself in studying the styles of cartoonists who later shaped his creative approach. Among his noted influences were Rube Goldberg, George McManus, and George Herriman, whose comic strip, The Stumble In, particularly caught the eye of Segar. Looking at some of these Stumble In strips, you can really see how the character designs infiltrated Segar's own work, particularly the eyes and noses of some characters. He would refine and make it his own, of course, but the building blocks can certainly be seen in these lovely comics. Feeling confident and getting some notions, he decided to move to Chicago, where luck would have it that he became acquainted with Richard F. Occult. If you watched my Birth of the Beano video, you will know Occult is the granddaddy of comics, creating the first famous comic strip character, the Yellow Kid, and even inventing the modern use of word balloons. Check out that video after this if you want to learn more about this creepy, bald, snaggle-toothed Irish vagabond. Mr. Occult, being super sound, used his influence to get him a job on the Herald newspaper, drawing Charlie Chaplin's Comic Capers on March 12, 1916. This strip ran for a little over a year. The comics aren't groundbreaking or anything, but they are fun. They lack the distinctive Segar style we would all grow to love, but working on the strip of a famous picture film comedian probably limited his ability to stylize as much as he would have wanted. During this period, Segar introduced Barry the Boob, a comic about an inept soldier. maybe it's just me, but I can see his style really starting to showcase here. His later successful comic would have many bold characters like you find in this strip. Segar also introduced 2 other brief comic strips for the Herald Sunday magazine, The Mistakes of Mr. Muddle and the Rube Goldberg inspired and the Get By With It. By 1918, he had moved on to notorious arsehole William Randolph Hearst's Chicago Evening American. Segar was tasked with creating a 1-column comic which was titled Looping the Loop. This was done under the guidance of Hearst's right-hand man, Arthur Brisbane, who advised him to go out, gather ideas, and make the column as long as you want. Segar took this on board and crafted a distinctive daily strip. This tall, slender comic tackled a wide range of topics that changed daily, providing Segar with a valuable outlet to hone his skills as an original humorist. Over time, the comic strip evolved to focus on promoting movies and other entertainment events at specific locations. So, Segar is working hard, plying his trade and developing his style. He decides to move to New York, where King Feature Syndicates were looking to create a comic strip to replace Midget Movies by Ed Whelan, who had recently resigned from the publication. The timing was perfect for our mate Segar to step into the picture, and he convinced him to accept his ideas for a new strip, Thimble Theatre. This new strip would appear in the New York Journal in 1919, the star of which was, drumroll please, Olive Oyl. That's right, our lanky rubber hose limbed Olive was the star. There was also her greedy brother Castor Oil and boyfriend Harold Hamgravy, later just Hamgravy. As you can probably tell, Segar loved to base character names around puns, similar to Akira Toriyama, who would push this naming convention even further with his opus, Dragon Ball. Our heroes weren't your classic do-gooders. They were often rather greedy or lazy and had a little edge to them. Olive in the beginning also isn't as skinny and is more realistically proportioned. She is also not as nervous as we would later see her presented in the cartoons. The Thimble Theatre strip, while beginning out with more traditional smaller strip formats, would branch out into recurring characters and long-running storylines set in places like Africa and the wild. The strip, while not lighting the world on fire, cracked on nice and steady, gaining its own audience. Finally, 10 years after its debut, we would get something that would explode its popularity. A hard-fighting, hard-drinking, pipe-smoking, one-eyed curmudgeon, one-off character who would soon kick Hamgravy to the curb and become the star, Popeye. Speaking of Popeye, before we get to his first appearance, it is believed that he was based on a Polish-born Frank Rocky Figal, a laborer from Illinois who was famous for getting into fights but also gave out treats to children, including E.C. Segar. What a fun little tidbit I just gave you. You're welcome. Hired by Castor Oil and Hamgravy to crew a ship bound for Dice Island, where they aim to win big at a crooked casino using the luck of Bernice the Wiffle Hen, which oddly is what gave Popeye his strength before the introduction of spinach. After this storyline, Popeye briefly left the strip, but overwhelming reader demand brought him back within weeks. His popularity quickly grew, leading to a larger role and a wider syndication for the strip. By 1930, Olive Oyl left Ham to become Popeye's girlfriend, and Castor Oil's schemes gradually faded away to Popeye's larger presence. New characters like J. Wellington Wimpy, a hamburger-loving moocher who would gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today, joined the cast in 1932, solidifying the strip's comedic focus on Popeye, Olive, and their many misadventures. Thimble Theatre was then even renamed to Thimble Theatre starring Popeye in 1931 before again being renamed to just Popeye. It looks like Segar had struck gold with this quirky and odd-looking man. In his first appearance, he wears an all-white sailor suit and his jaw isn't as prominent, but as Segar continues to strip, he would iron out all these kinks and give us our good Sailor Boys classic look. I think most people, myself included, are more used to the Popeye cartoons, which were all one-and-done stories with a very clear formula. Bluto causes trouble, kidnaps Olive Oyl, and Popeye fights him and takes a bad beating before taking steroid spinach to get super strength and save the day. Hooray! The comics in contrast were much longer and featured fantastical stories, often taking weeks or even months to get to their conclusion. Spinach also wasn't that commonly used and was in fact a replacement for the aforementioned weird Wiffle Hen that Popeye would rub to get his strength. It was the cartoon that really made spinach the main staple it became, and speaking of cartoon staples, our boy Big Bad Bluto only appeared in one story arc in the comic. Again, it was the later theatrical cartoons that made him the recurring antagonist of the franchise. Okay, enough beating around the But, did it again. It should be Bush, but I did the old switcheroo. And speaking of switcheroo, let's switch from the comics to the cartoons. In November 1932, King Features signed an agreement with Fleischer Studios to have Popeye and the other Thimble Theatre characters begin appearing in a series of animated cartoons released by Paramount Pictures. The first cartoon, titled Popeye the Sailor, was released in 1933. Surprisingly, despite the name, this isn't even a real Popeye cartoon. It's in fact a Betty Boop short, though she only has a minor role in it as a very tanned hula dancer. The cartoon begins with live action footage of papers getting printed, and we zoom into an image of Popeye with the story declaring he has become a movie star. This hasn't aged all that great. At first I thought the cartoon would be about Popeye being a famous movie star, but it is actually referring to his jump from his actual comic to theatrical cartoons. The first 5 minutes I was so confused before the penny finally dropped. Well, now that I over-explained it, let's continue. Being a cartoon in the 1930s, we get a lot of singing, like a lot of singing. We find Popeye, the eternal narcissist, singing about himself and trashing the boat for no reason. He clearly has some serious emotional problems, I think. This isn't normal behavior. Anyways, after wrecking a lot of shit, he hops off the boat and meets Olive Oyl and brings her to the carnival. Luckily, our good boy Bluto goes along just in case to keep an eye on Olive for her own safety. Popeye clearly is on the verge of having some sort of steroid spinach meltdown, so he needs to be there just in case. He's a hell of a guy. Things seem fine at first, with Popeye winning some games and impressing Olive, but then Betty Boop pops out with an impossibly big head and her sensual dancing steals away the narcissist Popeye's attention. Not very happy, his roid rage and ego compel him to jump up on stage to dance and take all the glory back. He even tears the bearded lady's beard clean off her face to wear as a makeshift hula skirt. This guy's an out of control lunatic, but Betty tries to take it in stride and continues her show like a real professional. Seeing a chance to save and deprogram Olive, Bluto whisks her away to safety. Popeye, the chauvinist that he is, can't allow anyone to take what is in his mind his property, so he gives chase after them. Still gaslit into thinking Popeye is a hero and it's only the spinach that makes him behave badly, and perhaps she can change him, Olive decides to resist the help of Bluto, who has no choice but to restrain her by tying her to a train track. It really is for her own good. Popeye catches up and Bluto fights the good fight, but just when he thinks he has him down, Popeye does what he always does. Cheats! He pulls out his steroid spinach and punches Bluto into an early grave. Unfortunately, while they were fighting, a train began to approach Olive. Now, instead of untying and fixing the track like he clearly is more than capable of doing, Popeye instead decides to punch the train, shattering it to pieces, and no doubt killing all its passengers. We get absolutely no remorse from Popeye, who ends the cartoon by singing his own name.
I'm Popeye the Sailor Man.
We can only hope in the future that somebody somewhere will be able to stop this spinach-eating, roid rage, narcissistic maniac. So that was the first Popeye cartoon, and it was a lot of fun with some great art and gags. Some standout moments include Popeye hitting a carnival machine so hard it flies into space and gives the moon a black eye. No doubt a reference to Le Voyage dans la Lune from 1902. Another really funny moment is in the beginning when Bluto walks up to Olive and she just starts wailing on him, like really throwing some haymakers, and Bluto, ever the gentleman, just laughs it off. What a guy. It's not just Bluto though, she smacks around every other sailor who comes up to her for absolutely no reason. Mostly. So she can't really justify it as her knowing Bluto is a bad guy. She's just a toxic, violent bully. Let's talk a little bit about that lip sync. Popeye cartoons just don't even bother.
How do you play this game?
Oh, it's just like London Bridge falling down, that's all. Here we are.
Should I count 10?
No, we ain't out on the floor yet.
Oh, I see. Oh,
Yep.
Hey, take it easy,
You gotta
Olive.
hold on to me, Popeye, because
Yep,
you know
Now
what
take
I'm
it easy,
saying.
Olive.
I see that.
I'm nervous, I know.
The only consistent lip syncing is Popeye singing his own name at every goddamn opportunity he gets.
I'm Popeye the Sailor Man.
Everything else is basically just disembodied voices mumbling over each other. This isn't just this cartoon either, it's a Popeye feature. In my next video where I watch every Academy Award nominated cartoon, I am covering the very first Popeye to be nominated for an Oscar, and most of the scenes with Popeye are just him mumbling under his breath with no mouth movements.
Sorry I ever came in here. It's kind of spooky to me around here. What's that?
It can take you a little bit off guard, but it quickly becomes part of the charm. This cartoon, I think, from being a combination of Betty Boop cartoons and being made in the early 30s, as well as having to be an adaptation of Thimble Theatre, has this very strange world setting around it. The only people in it are Popeye, Bluto, and Olive. I guess you could say Betty Boop too, but she used to be a dog and is now a weird bobblehead monstrosity. We get lots of anthropomorphic characters as people, which I don't know, seems odd. This would lessen over time. The animation itself in the short is so fun and just so dynamic. Everyone, when not doing direct action related to the story, just bob up and down to the music in the background in that fun 1930s way. You young whippersnappers might even recognize this kind of animation from Cuphead, which was based on 30s cartoons like this and older. The design and bold outlines of the characters really pop, especially when you compare them to other cartoons at the time, especially those boring Disney ones. It's easy to see why Popeye became more popular than Michael the Rat. The voices here aren't really what we know, but nothing bad either. Olive Oyl, voiced by Bonnie Poe, does fine, but it's not until the third short when the Betty Boop actress Mae Questel takes over and bases the voice on Zazu Pitts.
My aching soul, only 15 cents. Some girls say yes, very popular.
Oh, I can skate.
Popeye's voice is fine in this cartoon. You would know it's Popeye, but it isn't the famous voice we all know. The original voice actor, William Costello, demanded a vacation halfway through the production of one of the cartoons. Well, the good news was that he got his vacation. The bad news was he never came back from it. Luckily, a young upstart animator by the name of Jack Mercer was caught by one of the Fleischer brothers, Lou to be exact, entertaining his colleagues with Popeye impressions. He soon got the job, and it was really his comical mutterings under the breath that became an essential part of the cartoons, giving the sailor a new layer of character. He would continue to voice the sailor for almost 50 years and happily never animated again. I think maybe he did, who knows, but why would you when you're Popeye? Animation is terrible and so hard. I'm trying my best, okay? I'm trying my best. The success of this short was immediate, and just like a decade earlier when he kicked Ham Gravy and cast her to the curb, it was now Betty Boop's time to be shown the door. Her charm and fun had already been dimmed quite a lot by the Hays Code, and now this Popeye upstart had become the studio's biggest star. Sorry baby, that's just Hollywood. Not counting this Betty Boop cartoon, there would be a further 122 Popeye theatrical shorts, not to mention TV shows and an inexplicably weird and kinda boring movie, whose biggest saving grace was one of the greatest castings ever. I'm talking about Shelley Duvall as Olive. Talk about being born to play a role. She was just perfect in this movie, and is the only reason to watch this strange movie. I might have to review it down the line, so let me know in the comments if you have even the slightest interest. Before we finish, I want us to look at one more cartoon, a failed pilot for a Popeye movie directed by Genndy Tartakovsky, the man behind Dexter's Lab, Samurai Jack, Primal, and Hotel Transylvania. The cartoon is an animation test and it's amazing, but let's ignore how good it is and get mad about Popeye not having his pipe or tattoos. I don't get the deal with the pipe. Nobody knows what a pipe is nowadays, especially kids, and removing the tattoos is a bit much. Just calm down. Give him back his pipe and tattoos. Nobody cares. Anyways, the test animation is amazing. So fast and fun, with the standout being Olive herself. Her physicality is the best part of the whole thing, as her body contorts and stretches all over the place. I would have loved a whole cartoon in this style with a strong focus on Olive Oyl and her amazing movements. Now, you didn't hear this from me, but confidentially, a storyboard animatic of what the movie would have been was leaked online and can be found if you look hard enough, and to be honest, you don't even need to look that hard. So, if it's something that fancies your tickle, I say go for it, Tiger.
Olive!
Well, that wraps up today's episode of Pilot, and boy, we sure learned a lot about Popeye. Unfortunately, his creator didn't live that much longer after the big success, but it's left a lasting impression on the world. I think if there's one thing we learned about Popeye, it was that he really was a little character who could steal everybody's spotlight. At least finally in the end, in that failed movie Pilot, it was nice to finally see his spotlight stolen back by Olive Oyl, who really shined in that small piece of the cancelled movie. Maybe that's why it was cancelled, who knows? Well, if you don't want old Ashley to be cancelled, be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and of course, eat your steroid spinach.
I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm strong to the finish, 'cause I eat me spinach. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I want some gazookas, which hate all palookas, what hate honey up and swear. Why biffs and I bottom and always outrush them, but none of them gets nowhere. If anyone dares to risk me fist, it's pop and it's wham, understand. So keep good behavior, that's your one lifesaver with Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm strong to the finish, 'cause I eat me spinach. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man.